Still, oh,
Bad beats. That was bad
PTSD.
beats, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt really bad when I saw that. It's something that in order to know that, you'd have to do it.
Yeah.
And
you have to learn the hard way, that's for sure. So we'll see. Madalan versus Dasvi. Who will come out on top? It looks like Alana's to kick things off against Forest. Based on the mulligans, we'll see how this match plays out.
You did mention earlier, Aya, that perhaps one of the biggest kind of key strengths Madalan had here was his Seraph deck, but I think Dasvi just saw it and was like, nope, I'm not playing against that. Not this time.
Yeah. Nope.
But now he's in but now he's in a pretty good spot. I mean, maybe he could have some trouble trying to play, like, sometimes Elena can struggle versus Roach, sometimes it stays out of the way, but Madalan is going to have to get a victory here with a pretty standard aggro sword list into two decks that just absolutely refuse to give games up to aggro, so I think Madalan's actually in an uphill battle after the way bans have worked out.
Well, I completely agree with that. The thing is that Alana happens to be pretty good against Roach for one particular reason. It can build boards that Roach can't deal with. And if you don't have your lethal set up, thanks for playing. You know, thanks for playing. If you don't have your lethal set up, that's it. It's a wrap it up. And even then, you look at Madalan's hand right now. It's not okay. It's a little better now with that. That was a good draw because he was gonna have to trade his two fairies into it until he drew that.
And it hurts being on the play here because he can't really develop Elven Princess Mage either. But so you play a lot of Haven, and I remember you saying earlier, okay, because we said it just like an hour ago, that you kind of prefer the control style of things. Where do you rank like Elena's in terms of like its archetype? Do you think it's like, does it count as a control deck, or is it like a tempo deck?
It feels more tempo-y, but it's more towards my style of play. I like playing very slow games, and Alana does allow me to do that. So if a game really drags out, I can definitely play a very slow, methodical style of game with it. So yeah, I mean, Alana is definitely a deck that I like playing.
I think interestingly enough, I feel as though like Elena has just completely been transformed by the addition of Tenko and Ether. But funnily enough, I think like also not yet at the turns where he can develop cards like that. Sometimes one of the weaknesses of this list is before it gets anything on the board, it can be sometimes like a bit of a struggle to develop anything. But at the same time, we might see what your prediction was as being like just totally right. You can shrug off damage and build up a really tough to clear board at the same time.
Well, I wanted to kind of go back to something you said about Aether, transforming this deck. Aether has transformed Haven.
No kidding.
Transformed Haven completely. One of the things that Haven always struggled with was getting value cards outside of Amulet. So, drawing a Beast Call Arya when you're in a desperate situation feels terrible. Okay, but drawing an Aether with your situation doesn't feel as bad. You're like, okay, I can either get a Cleric Lancer or a Tenko, which in this list is Tenko, but I could do one of those things, and I feel pretty okay. So that's, I think Aether has done something for Haven that Haven is needed for a really long time.
Yeah, I mostly just like, what can I do but agree? Because like, you probably feel this a lot as like a Haven player. I haven't really touched the class much myself, but I did notice at a distance, it sometimes I feel like I say this every time, but I feel like all the legendaries that Haven receives for the most part, with the exception of like Snow White, is like there's a billion variations of like Skullfane. I know you really like Eidolon. There's just like so many things that just count down amulets and keep trying to make countdown amulets the focus of the deck, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, Aether just enables all kinds of different archetypes to do this like totally new thing.
If it were me, I think that cards like Aether is really just the direction that Haven should go. Okay. In terms of like legendaries, because if you look at Skullfane, you look at Eidolon, which I love both of those cards. Okay, but those cards are just, they're dreadful. I love them both. I love them. I mean, I did my master's trials with Skullfane, okay? Because I just really, really love the deck. But it's just, Skullfane, there's nothing worse than drawing a Skullfane and having nothing.
Right.
It's a 4
I can
for
only
7.
imagine.
The 4 for 7. It feels dreadful, man.
Gosh, though, is like as much time as we have spent like talking about how much Ether has changed things. I feel like, funnily enough, one of the toughest things for Dasvi this game in particular is just exactly not finding it. He hasn't really found any board to develop just yet that he can just kind of slam an Ether on towards, and that alone has really sealed it for him already.
This is rap. This is rap. Madalan did exactly what he needed to do, and he even allowed Dasvi to concede. He
just gives him that weight, like, all right.
He's like, you know, the writing's on the wall, man. You're just dead. Just concede.
Yeah, God, it's such a tough matchup for Elena to get through. I think it's like, except for the case where you mentioned where like they can develop board and buff it, it's just like it's one of those decks that just kind of sits there, and they have some wards, but it's just like a small enough amount unless they decide to pack Cleric Lancer also, which can be a bit excessive. It's just tough to deal with things that just have like Roach combo-esque types of burst, but I think we'll probably get to see some of the strength of it. I think it has a fantastic matchup coming up into Aggro Sword. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I agree completely. I think in the last matchup, we just saw that Dasvi didn't get enough of the early game. But if he was playing Alana into this matchup, it'd be great. But he chose to play Control Blood into this matchup, which it should still be great because of the Blood Moon revelation that he just mulliganed in.
Just the most guaranteed way to just be like, no, sit down.
Wow, he even did the hand. He was like, no, you're not getting nothing. Like, I love it.
I mean, he comes into this matchup. Yeah, he comes into this matchup knowing exactly how it's going to go. He even has Blood Moon into Righteous Devil, which is, well, I suppose he won't do it quite right away because he wants to get that evolve on it, but honestly, I know that you were excited to see some Control Blood, and I think this is just like the feeding round of Control Blood.
Yeah, Control Blood basically says, you know what, man? That's a nice sword deck you got there.
It would be a shame if I was already in Vengeance.
Yeah, which he is. So now, Sword can win this matchup, but I think it's going to end up coming down to the draw. Madalan doesn't have to worry about putting Dasvi into Vengeance, so he could just go face 100% of the time, because he's already in Vengeance. Okay, so he can go face 100% of the time. One of the things about Sword is that they usually worry a lot about putting Control Blood in Vengeance because it gives him access to Revelation, this and other. With Dasvi already being in Vengeance, he doesn't have to worry about that. So he's gonna have to push.
We're seeing him go exactly with that line. White General actually pushes a pretty absurd amount of damage here, but as we can see, Dasvi has a plethora of answers here. I think what it really comes down to is, like, as you said, could Madalan draw enough burst over the long run? And I'm thinking that his hand is looking pretty solid. He still has 2 Juliets in his deck. One of the most unfortunate things about Round Table on 5 is sometimes you just don't get that. Or, like, you've drawn too many Juliets by the time you pull it. That's just like a 5 cost to play one of them.
Right. Now, Scholar Brewer being very good right here. So what this does is not only does it clear board, but if he had done anything else, he would have left himself open to getting hit in the face by Albert, which he has not done.
It's actually like one of the craziest things to me about Scarlet Sabura is every single time I see this card, it goes 1 for 3. Like, it is just the card that goes 1 for 3. Manages to clear board with 2 hits, and then what does Sword really do here? Even if they, like, Sword has a really limited access to things like removal. He can't hit that with, like, Tsubaki or any of the other, like, kind of tempo removal they have at best, like double hull swing. Ugh.
What a draw that was! That was disgusting. What a draw. So he played a Belphegor, drew the Diabolic Drain. He must have been praying to the right RNG gods. Okay, he's like, brother, can I get a Diabolic Drain? And they
And
said
answered immediately, right? Gosh, like a follow-up to Sabrur being Belphegor Diabolic Drain. I feel like if that just happens, then just everything went right for you. That's just kind of the end of it.
Now, I do want to say that if Dasvi does not find a way to heal this coming turn, Madalan has lethal by playing Albert in the Centaur Vanguard.
Gonna need to do it a second time?
And didn't get it! He didn't get it! He didn't get it!
We talked this whole time about how this is like the feeding ground of Control Blood, like the one matchup that they just more or less always do really well. And we found the one situation where Agrosword actually just pushes it right through. He eats so much. Like he ate Scarlet Sabrur, an early Blood Moon. He pushed over a Righteous Devil that was active on 4. He pushed over a Diabolic Drain. Like just sweeps through.
I feel like we just recorded rare footage of like what the heck did I just watch? Control Blood doesn't lose these matchups.
Well, apparently they do, because that just happened.
I